you're, as mentioned, you're here today to draw your care map. I think you guys had joined us on Monday to learn about the Care Connection program, which the map is a part of, one of the 3 other tools that exist. So we're actually going to work at drawing today. So Nancy Marie and myself, we're going to take you guys through the process. So first I wanted to do a territorial honoring, and then I think Nancy Marie's going to do one as well. So I just wanted to speak from where I am today, which is in the city of St. Catharines, and that's the traditional unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Mississaugas, in the Hanuwashe, which is known as the League of Five Nations of People. And then I'm an East Coaster, so I always like to recognize where I come from. So I also wanted to acknowledge the land that I was born on in New Brunswick as being unceded territory of the Wabanaki people. Nancy Marie?
And I'm presenting from today from PEI, and begin by paying respect to the Mi'kmaq people of Abequid in Mi'kmaq, and acknowledge that Mi'kmaqi is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, who in 1725 first signed the treaties of peace and friendship with the British Crown. We recognize elders past and present who have cared for and continue to care for the land. In offering this acknowledgement, we affirm the history, experiences, and resiliency of Indigenous people who are still here today. We are grateful to live, work, and learn here, and we are committed to building relationships based in honor and respect.
Wonderful. Okay, so the other piece as well is the Palliative Care ECHO Project, which we is helping host this session for us today from Ontario and PEI. So the Palliative Care ECHO Project is a 5-year national initiative to cultivate communities of practice and establish continued professional development among healthcare professionals and community across Canada who are caring for patients with life-limiting illness, as well as, supporting those caregivers and people who may be experiencing grief. And we just want to say thank you to Health Canada, who is our financial sponsor for the ECHO project, for the Atlas CareMap, the Care Connection program. So we want to thank them for their financial contribution. And then the other acknowledgement, we have 2 others. One is to the Atlas of Care. So the Atlas CareMap, which you would have heard in Monday's session, was created by the Atlas of Care in the US based out of some research. So we always like to take a moment to acknowledge them and their contribution in allowing us to basically take their tool and make some adjustments and scale and spread it in Canada. Janet, can I just ask you if you can maybe put yourself on mute, please? That would be, thank you. And then the other one is Pine wants to thank the Joan and Regis Duffy Foundation, because ultimately they're supporting these sessions in PEI, so for their support of the Care Connections program. So I'm Bonnie Tompkins. I work at Pallium Canada. My focus at Pallium Canada is to build capacity within the community. So I'm the Compassionate Communities National Lead. And Nancy Marie is on with us as well, who will be, we'll be working together to present this slide deck for you guys today. And she's the Executive Director of Hospice PEI. And one other quick thing I'd just like to point out for you guys, if you were to engage with that Atlas CareMap Community Workshop Toolkit, that free one that helps people host these workshops, the slide deck you're going to see today is the slide deck that you would be using in that. It's the one you would receive when you download that toolkit. So just in case you're wondering what things might look like, much of what you're interacting with today will be exactly what you would get. So just some welcome and reminders. So we would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. We ask that your microphones are muted right now. Now we are going to be, doing some activities, and because it's a small group, I think we'll probably just do it all together. But there will be time for questions and answers at the end. We asked you if you're having any tech questions or tech issues and things like that, if you could post in chat. Diana is here with us from the Palliative Care ECHO Project, so ECHO, and she can try and help us out. So please put that in the chat. Otherwise, when we get around to doing the question and answer, I think we might try and use the Q&A function. Yeah, what else do we have here? That the session is recorded, so just so that you're aware of that, and we will send you guys a copy of the recording and the slide deck within a week. And again, if you're running these workshops, that's a great opportunity. You could go back and sort of see how Nancy Marie and myself hosted this workshop, and that could just, you know, sort of help you with hosting yours. And the last piece being, because it is recorded, we certainly remind you not to disclose any personal health information. Just quickly, a little reminder about PIAM in case we do have any new faces. So we are a national charity funded in 2000. The reality is, you know, our work is about building capacity so that every Canadian has access to palliative care. And so our focus, you know, back in the early 2000s was on healthcare professionals, so increasing their knowledge of the palliative care approach. And so we want to create that really system-wide change to ensure more Canadians have access. So now we are also engaging leadership teams, so leaders of long-term care, leaders of hospitals and things like that, so that they understand the palliative approach and why it makes sense to bring it into their setting. And then there's the community piece, which is the piece that certainly I drive, about building the capacity in the community to support caregivers, people who are dealing with the serious or terminal illness, and then to support grief as well. We do a lot of research and are very much technology driven, especially post-COVID. Pretty much everything we have is online and in person. And last piece being empowering the community. Nancy Marie, over to you.
So I think that everybody's who's on the call would have heard me talk about this on Monday. So Hospice PEI provides service in 3 regions of the province. I always disclose that there are 2 other hospices on PEI that do work like we do. We are the provincial organization. This past year, we launched our new program, the Caregiver Support Program. So anybody who's on the webinar and for PEI looking for information, I encourage you to reach out to us. You can go on our website and reach out directly to the coordinators from the regions, and or call our provincial office here, and we can certainly give you information. And we support people who are not everybody we support are on the palliative program, but we support anybody who has an end-of-life diagnosis or end-stage chronic. You know, part of this work with the Care Hub is that early integration of getting people planning and, you know, having some autonomy around what they want their living to look like while they have those illnesses. So I always reiterate that that's so important to the work that we do, and that you do not have to have a palliative diagnosis or be on the palliative program, because of course not everybody gets on the palliative program.
Great, thank you. Okay, guys, so just quickly, you may have saw this polling question again on Monday, but we'd love to just have a sense of, you know, why you're here, basically. So if you guys could do the poll quick for us, that would be great. So we've got 3 supporting in a professional role and 1 as other. Great. So I'm really, you know, I love to see the fact that, you know, organizations or people are on here to support the caregivers in their professional role, because certainly when it comes to this Atlas CareMap as well, like not always are caregivers going to have that capacity to draw it on their own. So if we can work with them to help them draw it the first time, then, you know, because learning something new when you're very focused, it just can seem like too much. So I'm really, really happy to see that you guys are here. And really, that's why we created the Atlas CareMap Community Workshop Toolkit, is so that you can then take that resource. It's got everything you need, and you'll be able to host these workshops. So happy to see you here. And thank you, hopefully, for being a champion of this resource. So just quickly, some of the learning objectives. So we're going to do a little overview of the CareMap today. Again, you should have gotten some exposure to it on Monday. Understand the benefits of the CareMap, and then we're going to get into creating our CareMap and then learning how to share it. So that's going to be the active part of the session. Agenda-wise, just, we'll cover this, what a CareMap is, why it's useful, putting your CareMap to work. So I think that this is one of the pieces that's very important. And so that will definitely be an activity. What's going to happen here during that phase is we will probably break out into breakout rooms, because I've seen a few more people come in now. So you'll be in a room with a partner. And what you're going to do is try and learn how to speak about your CareMap after you've created it, because that is a key piece, and you'll learn about why. And we will cover about where to find resources in on PEI and beyond. So we always find it helpful just to clearly define what what these roles are. So a caregiver for us is anyone who's providing that unpaid care. So that's when we say caregiver, that's who we mean. Instead of using the word patient, we use care recipient. In the program, healthcare professional, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, and then support network. So those are the individuals around the caregiver, care recipient, who are providing support, whether it's physical or emotional. So just another, oh, you know what, guys, this is, I think, the same one again. So we're going to skip it. Yes. Okay, let's move forward. So you would have seen a version of this on Monday, and that really what we're trying to remind you guys about is the fact that, healthcare professionals have an important role to play, but the amount of care that they provide is actually about 20% of the care that's needed. And so this research here in Canada is based on that last year of life. So it's not, say as soon as they're diagnosed, for instance. Although there is some recent research that has come out really saying the same sort of thing. Right from point of diagnosis, caregivers are still providing roughly about 80 to 85% of that care. And so the reminder here is that, that's a lot of work on a caregiver and for them to sort of manage. So we go back to what can we do to sort of help them during this time when they're on that journey to lighten the load. And that's really what the CareMap's going to help them do. So just a reminder about what the CareMap is. So the CareMap is a visual tool. You guys will get a sense of that today. I do believe the email you received had asked you guys to have a piece of paper and a pencil, because you're going to be drawing your map today. And the whole point of it is, once the caregiver has drawn their map by pencil and paper, it really helps them understand their caregiving journey, helps them reflect on maybe where there are some gaps and they could use some additional help. And then from there, will help facilitate getting some of that additional help. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the caregiver is going to feel more supported while they're on that journey, better quality of life for them and the care recipient, better impact on their health and mental health. So really that the CareMap, understanding their situation and where they're at is very helpful. So what a CareMap may look like. So this is very much a simplified version for sure. And I was mentioning earlier, I have actually been hosting these workshops all week around the Ontario area. And some people had quite complicated CareMaps. they had 2 or 3 houses because they weren't actually living with the care recipient. They were living in their house, but still close by providing care. So care maps can be simple. Care maps can certainly be complicated. And really, you know, this is a big barrier that exists, and research validates that, the idea that, you know, from the caregiver's perspective, it's often a case of they don't want to burden people, so they don't ask for help. Or for instance, say a neighbor comes over and says, you know, if you need anything, let me know. And sometimes caregivers also don't follow up on that because, one, they don't know what that person might be willing to do. So they just are like, it's fine, I'm okay, I won't take them up on that offer. Or again, going back to they just don't want to feel like a burden for them, right? So there's a real barrier here around offering and accepting help. And so the addition that Pallium brought to the physical, like the care map that you saw just a minute ago, is called a wish list. And you guys will get to interact with that in a little bit. And that's designed to help people, help facilitate this conversation where you're letting family and friends support you. But it flows a little bit easier than asking specifically. Okay, so we are going to get ready to start drawing a care map. So I know we have some tools. I see that Diana's been putting them in the chat for you guys. We also emailed them ahead of time, but a lot of those documents you're going to need to get out. So the first two I would say you really want to focus on is the how to create a care map, and then the Atlas CareMap building questions. So I would either have those open electronically or open beside you. And you do need that blank piece of paper and a pencil because you are going to start drawing your map. If anybody sort of doesn't have something, can you just let us know? We can take a quick little pause for you to get what you need to start that drawing process. I'm just going to keep an eye on a chat and see if any posts anything. Okay, so we're going to start drawing our map. So here's a few things just to sort of let you guys know. Is that the map can be, like, you can draw the map in person or like on paper, or you can draw it digitally. So it can be, you can go to Atlas of Care's website in the US. They have the ability to draw it digitally. It really is best to always draw it by, you know, hand and paper the first time, because, and I saw this all week, people were scratching things off, like erasing their lines and moving things around. And there's just good research talking about that sort of hand-brain connection. So if you're doing these workshops or you're helping a caregiver draw their map, I really would encourage you to do it pencil and paper the first time. But if they choose to, maybe after that, they could go and create a digital version, and they can go back and adjust that version. So that's another thing to sort of think about. You'll see, you know, when you download the package, we encourage people to either adjust their care map or redraw their care map every time they've sort of had a change in their caregiving journey. So maybe that person has had a heart attack and therefore the care that they need has increased, right? So all of a sudden their care requirements have changed. So that's a good time to go back to that map and reflect on, okay, here's where we are now. Like, now what do we need to get into place, right? Or how, what other support can we get? So having people redraw it as that journey changes. I know that as well with the digital piece, some people aren't comfortable drawing online for security purposes. So again, having a paper copy works as well. So you can see here in this image, it's a bit more of a complicated care map, and I definitely saw some of those in the sessions I was doing today. What I really want to show you guys, and I will leave this up on the screen when it's drawing time for you, is that you need to come up with a legend so that you understand the frequency with which these people provide care for you. So you can see here if it's, you know, perforated, that it is less frequently, it's just occasionally versus a really thick line. I've also seen people color code, right? So they use purple for frequent or maybe red for frequent versus whatever, blue for daily. So I've also seen people color code their line. So you do what works for you, or if you're helping people draw, like ask them what their preference is and you can go from there. But ultimately you're going to need to make a legend somewhere on your care map. So it just helps you understand. And so using these sort of circles can help too, because what it shows is these guys are all close together, right? So it's maybe a really close knit, maybe that's your community, right? Like your physical community. And then maybe this is like the city or something like that. So you can use these circles to sort of help people understand who's close by, who's a little further away, and who's quite far away. So if this is in, it looks like this is in Princeton and this is in Baltimore, this person's quite far away. So you can sort of tell that from here. Again, when we get ready to draw, I will come back to this because I know this slide is very helpful. So just some quick tips. So certainly with your how to create an Atlas CareMap document, you're going to want to turn to page, I believe it is page 2, where it says how to get started. So that's where you guys are going to want to start. Step 1 mentions what I already spoke to you guys about, the idea you can draw by hand or draw digitally. Again, we encourage you to draw by hand. You will need to also open your building questions. I know it's kind of hard because it fades away, but you'll need to open your building questions document. And here you will start on page 1, which is the creation question. So that's the only questions you're focusing on at this point, okay? And we're going to give you guys some time to do this. You're going to get about 10-15 minutes to start drawing your map. If you have questions, you can either message us in the chat, or if you want, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, because honestly, there may be someone else that has sort of the same question. Definitely experienced that this week. So building questions, start on page 1 and page 2. That's all your questions. And then focus on step 3 for starting to draw your care map. And that's it for this first section. So I'm going to go back so you guys have that legend. And we're going to start drawing our care map. So we're at 11:25. So let's say at about 11:40, I'm just going to verbally reach out to you guys to see if everybody sort of feels okay to stop drawing their map, and then we can continue forward. Okay, guys? So you've got 15 minutes to draw your map. If you have any questions, put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay. So I will talk a little bit, if that's okay, while you guys are working. So Catherine, you need the building questions. So I think they're in the chat. Maybe Diana could drop them in the chat for you again, because she had put many of these documents in the chat earlier. So I can appreciate that maybe some of you guys on here don't have a caregiving experience, or who are not actively caregiving. If that's the case, you're sort of struggling, you know, maybe think about a time when you were ill and people are providing care for you. One of the participants in my course earlier this week, that's what he reflected on. And it was actually still quite enlightening for him, realizing how much his wife had taken on. So, you know, I'm just trying to give you some ideas in case you don't have a personal sort of caregiving experience, or since you guys seem to be in organizations that interact with people who are on these journeys, you know, maybe you could pull from there as well. I'm just going to set myself on mute unless I hear from anybody. So Roseanne, yes, you can use a personal time for sure to help draw your map. And in fact, one female who was in one of the workshops was a mom, and she didn't have personal sort of care experience in this realm yet, but she reflected on her caring for her children. And that's kind of what's great about the Atlas CareMap, guys, is that really we've seen this tool be used more broadly than sort of people who are on that palliative care journey. We've heard about parents who have children with disabilities using this. We've heard about people who, you know, are in early stages of a disease, Parkinson's, things like that. So really, and you won't find a whole lot of content or language in our workshop, like all our toolkits that focus strictly on caregiving, dying and grieving, or dying and grieving per se. So I think it's quite easily adaptable to go a little bit bigger than just specifically the palliative care journey. And I know that some people on here are with different kind of organizations and where that concept may really apply.
I'm approaching this exercise using my mom and dad as the household.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, in terms of that, so I've got them in one household, and then as I'm building their supports, that's outside of the household. Is that right?
Yeah, because you don't live in that household, right, Anne?
Yeah, that's right. And my
Exactly.
siblings don't either.
Perfect.
But they have lots of other support. So, but in terms of like the signifiers and things that are on the map that's on our screen at the moment, we aren't doing that just yet. We're just putting in the names, or
no, so you will. So let's say this is your parents, this big house here, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say that's you over here and one of your other siblings over there.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so when we were building maps this week, like people were putting in the house cleaner, people were putting in one situation where a PSW was coming from Bayshore. So they were including Bayshore and they were including the PSW. So really, you really want to track everything is the goal here. Even friends who were just coming to sit, or one person had family who would call every day. So they were providing care by making that phone call. So you really want to try and put everything down there.
Okay.
And sorry, go ahead, Bonnie.
The only other thing I will say is there were a few times for one person specifically where the arrow went in both directions. So that sister lived outside of town. She would call her dad daily, which provided her dad care, right? But also she would check in on her sister to see what she could help with. And so that was care for her sister. And she would update this, like the sister who was closer would be updating. So their arrow went in both directions. Does that make sense for everybody? Because they were actually helping each other out.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, Bonnie, that I was doing this exercise with my oldest sister, who's the primary caregiver for our mom. And we included, so we were doing this little map exercise. She didn't want to come on the call today. I tried to convince her. And we put like pets and grandkids, and because they foot care people, like we really went really big, or who are all the people that support mom. And Bonnie's identifying that the arrows can go both ways. That was really helpful for my sister, because as the primary caregiver for my mom, we can help support her who's doing the heavy lifting, so to speak, with mom.
Yeah, and so some people, like on our map here, people are listed by location, but for instance, the one map that got quite complicated in the workshop this week, she would actually like draw a person and write mow, because they mowed the lawn, and then she'd draw a person and she'd just write garbage because they did the garbage, right? So it was how she built her map. And I think that's kind of handy because quickly you can see what they're helping out with if it's not a long list. I guess on the map here, they do have the back and forth arrows to signify they're helping each other, but we just sort of did one arrow with, or one line with 2 arrows at each end. Catherine, I just saw your message in the chat. It's great. One other thing I will mention as well is on Atlas of Care's website, which we have included the links to this stuff in the documents if you guys hopefully download all the toolkits and use them, is little videos, right? So little videos, quick little 1-minute videos on how to draw it, how to do different aspects within the care map, how to create your legend, stuff like that. So, you know, if you want to sort of get more knowledge behind you before hosting any workshops, I would absolutely check out, I think there's 3 or 4 videos there that you guys can use. Thank you, Diana. She just put the link to them in the chat. So the videos are really great. Okay, guys, so we are at about 11:40. Would anybody like a little more time to draw? Because you are then going to work at sharing your map. So if you want more time, just throw a message or come off mute and let us know.
I don't feel like I'm complete, but I'm in a position to share.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like quite a few people said, I'm going home tonight to keep working at this. And I think that's really realistic as, you know, as things sit in your brain and then you're like, oh, I didn't put that on there and I didn't put that on there. Again, why pencil and paper are great. Okay, so I'm not hearing any like, please, I need like 5 more minutes. So I think we'll move forward. And as I just articulated, you can easily keep working at this after if you want to. Okay, so let's move us forward. So reflection time. So just a sort of a chance for you to go back and look at what's on your map. So I think we'll leave this for you guys. You can do this in the evening, but what often you would do is go back and look at the questions again and see, okay, did I forget anything? Is there anything missing? But really, again, I think this happens over days as it all sort of, you know, you get time to sort of think about it. So what we're going to do then is move on to creating your wish list, which is the piece that Pallium added to this resource to help with that offering and accepting of help. So as you can see here on the screen, what I'd love you to do is on your piece of paper, find a little area that's kind of empty and write the word wish list in pencil on your map. And so the point of the wish list is really about identifying those tasks or activities that you would love support with, and I'll explain this in a little bit more detail in a minute, that you would love support with that would provide better quality of life for yourself, for your care recipient, that would, you know, reduce that care workload that you're providing, right? So what we want to do is that 80%, we want to try and, you know, cut off another portion of it, right? So it's not 80%, maybe it's 50%. So that's what the wish list is here to do. It can also sort of help you track, you know, additional support. So when you're sharing with family and friends, they see this wish list, they go, oh, this is something that I can easily do. So this is the piece around how you broaden that support network. So when I say put on key tasks or activities, here's some examples. So I was caregiver to my late partner for 5 years, so I'm going to pull from my experience. I would put things on my wish list that would include things like walking our dog. I was also in school at the time and working, and so going to school and leaving him in the home just riddled me with stress. So my neighbors started sitting with him. They saw I posted my class schedule, they would sit with him. So that's another thing I would have added to my wish list. Groceries, meals. My neighbor, it was like springtime, so my neighbor stepped up and he sort of like opened up the house for the summer kind of thing, outside, raked the leaves, that sort of stuff. But other things that you could put on there that are equally important when we really think about this concept of care connections and how keeping people socially connected is important for their health. So maybe, for instance, like I loved yoga and I stopped going to yoga and I stopped hanging out with my girlfriends because I was just either with him or doing my other things and I just didn't have any other time for myself, which we know that self-care piece is important. So on that wish list, you could put things like, I want to attend yoga, I need someone to sit with him, right? So that's what we mean by key tasks, but also some activities that would maybe bring you quality of life. I heard an example from someone where the care recipient used to love going to the library and read, like love, but obviously they were bedridden now and couldn't get out. So someone picked up the task of going to the library, picking up books and bringing them to them. So their job solely was bring new books, take old books back to the library. So that's another example. So we'll give you guys like 5 minutes to sort of think about what would be on your wish list. In the building questions document on page 3, is the piece about the wish list. So you'll see some questions on there to try and prompt you guys to build your wish list. Any questions about that piece? If so, by all means, please let us know. So here's some examples of you might want to look at putting on your wish list. Okay, I'm going to assume everybody's all right. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So that'll put us till about 10 to 12 to look at this piece. Add your wish list in. Okay, guys, so we're about at our 5 minutes. So as you can see with these questions here, they're sort of prompting us to think about this in a variety of different ways when we're adding to that sort of wish list, and also just about our map in general. And certainly you could, maybe you're on this caregiving journey like myself for quite a while, and people go on vacation, or maybe people end up having to travel for work or something like that. So thinking about, for instance, let's say Joe walks the dog every day. Well, who else could spot Joe off, and maybe connecting those people together, right? So this sort of helps you think about that, and you can add that to the wish list. So we're going to kind of get into how to put that, like to put your care map to work for you, or how a caregiver could do that. That's where we're going to focus next. So we've got our map with our wish list on it. So first is, and you guys would have received copies of this. I think Diana will probably place them in the chat as well, but you will have, these are basically conversation guides, right? They're designed to help you have that conversation with family and friends, or have that conversation with your healthcare professional about your care map and your wish list. And what's really great about it, I mean, if you either say you take a picture of the map and it's always on the phone, or the person carries the map with them. But, when someone asks, how's it going? How's the caregiving journey going? You can easily show that map, right? And what often will happen is, say, whether it's family or friends, or the healthcare professional may go, oh, what's this wish list piece? What's this about? And you can simply say, this is the stuff that I wish I had additional help with, or things that I'd like to do if I could get some help to be able to leave the house to do them. And that just leaves the door open for people then to go, oh, well, let's, like, maybe the physician might go, oh, you would love food delivered or meals prep. Well, let's see, is there a service that we can get organized for you in the community? Or it could be then a family or friend who says, you know what, I can drop meals off for you, and that's sort of taken care of. So use these guides to get a little bit more comfortable talking about your care map. Like I said, it gives you some tips and stuff to be able to do that, especially when it comes to your health, like a healthcare professional. We know that can be a little intimidating for some people engaging with their healthcare professional. So just some of the tips on how to go about doing that, right? So, be prepared to talk about your map, and that's why we're going to do that activity in a few minutes. We always encourage people to prepare a list of questions. Often you can't remember those questions, in the spur of the moment. So try and create them ahead of time. Yeah, and just bring your care map with you everywhere. So if you're helping people draw their care maps, I think pretty easy these days is to take a photo of it, but they may just feel comfortable carrying that with them to the appointments, like the actual map on paper. And this stuff will lead to increasing, the awareness and understanding of what the caregiving journey is like. We, certainly are aware that sometimes families, under that pressure and stress can feel like, oh, you could be doing more things, right? Well, all of a sudden, if you've created your map, or that caregiver's created their map, and they're showing it to their family, and they see, oh my goodness, like, look at all the stuff that's on there, and look at the wish list of what you need help with, right? It often brings perspective for everybody to what the situation is actually like. Same with a healthcare professional. If you're sharing your map with your healthcare professional, all of a sudden they get a sense of like, wow, look at all the stuff you're managing or you're doing, and often we'll be like, well, let's see if we can take care of some of these things for you by finding some services in the community. And I can't say it enough, broaden that support network, right? That's what the wish list is designed for. And it's really, really interesting when we were building this week in person in a few of those workshops, the one gentleman who is the son-in-law and provides quite a bit of care to his mother-in-law who has dementia. Like he was so, he's very burdened because he's taking on a lot of that workload with his wife, and his wife is actually going to have surgery. So, you know, it was, he was struggling to sort of see how other people could help. And when he created his wish list with us, we then had a great conversation with him, like, okay, well, do you have neighbors around? Like, could those neighbors bring food, right? Because he does the food for the family. I said, well, how about you get neighbors to bring the food? So that's something you don't have to do. And then that can free you up to take on some of these other tasks you might have to take on while your wife is in the hospital. So it's that sort of thing, right? Because he created his wish list, then we were able to give him some ideas on where he could get help with some of these pieces. So I can't stress it enough. Creating the map is super important for the caregiver, but that wish list is equally important to broaden their support network and get help with the other things that they need. And to be honest, like if you show your map to say a girlfriend, right? Say you're caregiving and your girlfriend comes over, how are things going? You know, blah, blah, is there anything I can help you with? Show the map, right? And then, oh, what's the wish list? Oh, these are the things I'd love help with. It's so easy for them then to look at the things and go, oh, I can do these, or I can do this, put my name beside this. And all of a sudden they go on the map, right? And they've got their name, whatever it is, bringing food over or picking up books. So it really just makes that process less stressful and easier. So some of the conversations tips to help with caregivers. So if you're helping caregivers draw their maps, here's some tips that might be helpful. So, you know, how do I respond to someone who says they're unable to help? Really, at the end of the day, that could very well happen, and, you know, just thank them and, you know, move on kind of thing. I would really be shocked, but it could happen. Some people just are not comfortable with that. Let's say while you're helping someone create their care map, they express they have no care connections, like they're completely isolated. And again, I go back to the gentleman, the son-in-law, that's what he expressed to me. He had no one to help, but he has siblings, or the family had siblings far away. And so then we started to have that conversation about, okay, well, could they hire food to be delivered? Could they hire lawn care to look after the lawn? Could they hire cleaners to come clean the house? And then all of a sudden you could see his eyes and his, like the light bulb went on, and he was like, I never thought about them being able to do that sort of stuff from afar. And I was like, absolutely. Like they can pay for that stuff, right? And get it organized for you. There's no reason why they can't do that. So it's that sort of, and also asking them, you know, do they interact with anybody? Did they used to belong to a running club? Did they used to belong to a book club? Or do they still? Because again, sometimes caregivers, we just get so focused that we can't sort of see what's going on around us, or we kind of forget what our connections are that exist. So it's sort of prompting them to think about those daily interactions or get creative. I've said this all week. When it comes to finding that support, think outside the box, like really think outside the box. Another example I will share is I know a female who lives here. Her parents go to Florida for the winter, but her parents need a lot of help. So what she's done is her and her siblings, this is where the sort of money idea came for me, her and her siblings, they hire support for their parents down in Florida. So they have food delivered, they have groceries delivered, they have the property maintenance, like all that sort of stuff. So their parents just don't have to do any of that stuff down there. And they and friends do it from afar. So really, sometimes it's about getting creative and thinking outside the box. Okay, so now this is the sharing our care map piece. There are 7 of us, so we were hoping for quite a few more to do peer-to-peer, just 2 people per group. Would anybody be opposed if we shared our maps within the whole group and just sort of talked about them? If you are uncomfortable with that, maybe just sort of let me know, and we can go back to the breakout rooms just where it's 2 people per group. Okay, and see you. Okay, so I haven't heard anything from anyone. So would anyone mind going first? And it will be a bit of a challenge, but if you can try and hold up your map and just speak to us about the map and what your thinking was and and we can see your wish list. So Audrey, do you mind going first? Because I saw you wrote all good. So would you mind sharing? I'm going to stop sharing the slide right now, just so that we can see a little easier.
No
Okay,
problem.
Can you turn your camera on, Audrey?
Yes, yes, yes.
Perfect.
It's all good. Yeah. So I actually put the map in chat.
Oh, okay. I don't see it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all right. Maybe it didn't go through or something. So I will just give me a second. I'll put a piece of tape on it here. And I'll put it up to see if you guys can see this.
Okay.
Try to be creative. The ex-pediatric nurse, right? Okay, so I'm going to turn this around if I can with my, a second now. Where is the video? I'm going to do this.
Ah, perfect. I can see that.
You can see that? Okay,
That's a
perfect.
busy map. I like that map.
Well, you know what? It's done with markers. I actually did one of friends first. So because they are facing, I did one with them, just sort of scratching some ideas because they are in need of our support. But this is sort of what I looked like here. So
Okay.
this would be me. This would be my husband. And so what I looked at is, we have a son who's over here in Vietnam. We have a daughter. I've got 5 roads going to her place because we can get there at any moment within 5 or 6 minutes. And our son has a few more roads there because he's just across the field.
Ah, okay. You're a legend. Got it.
Yeah. So I have a red circle around my husband, this stick boy, because he's indispensable to my care.
Excellent.
Yeah. So definitely we have neighbors and siblings, which are there. So my siblings are aging as well as most of my neighbors, certainly a few young people, lots of lines to friend groups over here.
Great.
And then I have specific friends outlined here who are retired RNs.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Over here, I have my family doc down here. I have the oncology clinic. And then I have family and other under this. There's only 2 roads there because there's only so much I think you can expect of those other folks that are around. And so down here, wish list would be like, I think what we would need is we would need the cleaner, shopping, meals, car services, sitter, and a second person to replace my husband if he wasn't well. Things that I would still want to consider in my care map would be church, gym, walking, getting out, which would be critical to mental health and feeling well with chronic disease management and that sort of thing.
Awesome. So just a couple things for my initial having a peek at it. I think the arrows would be helpful just to indicate, because I don't know, for instance, are you still helping with church a lot or is church helping with you? So having those arrows on the line so we can clearly understand it's coming in your direction if it is, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that sort of thing. And I mean, I look at your wish list, like cleaner, shopping, so the question then becomes, your son, your daughter, could they financially contribute to a cleaner that comes to the house, right? Especially the one child that's quite far away. And then, so I assume the church, gym, walk, and getting out, those are things on your wish list you would like to still be able to do. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Right. So you would need support to maybe get to church.
Right. Transportation. Correctly. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So then, some of the elder siblings, if they live nearby, could probably still help out with that. Some of your friends could help out with that. So when you were sharing this map, I bet you quite quickly people would pick up on some of that stuff and easily be like, I can get you to church on Sunday, no problem. Like I will take on that task. I love that you put the second person in place. I think that's a really great idea, because if he plays such a crucial role, and you guys are aging, right? There's high likelihood that something could happen, even if he's just down for a couple of days with a cold, right? That could be problematic. So I think it's a great idea to see if someone else could sort of step in.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Great points.
Yeah, I love the map. And yeah, if you can, I think you said you had a friend who you had started to draw their map. So I mean, I think that's great if you could help them draw their map as well. And you're going to have a bit more of a sense of how to do it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Oh, this is very timely, actually. It's probably too late for a couple of friends who've passed, but certainly it's critical to her next year or for however long her husband lasts, right?
Yeah.
I didn't put in there much about, like on theirs, I didn't put any mental support in, but she like me has lots of friends. She has neighbors, but they're pretty shy people, like they're quieter people, they're private, but I'm pretty much in the midst of there when you're there, right? So they share anything or everything, but they are going to require just exactly all the things you've said right here in front of us. And actually, I'm thinking about eventually if this could be done with a group of ladies from our church or ladies and men.
Yes.
Yeah, like I think it would be a huge thing, because as we know, we look around the church and it's, or with whoever, with a group of friends, with, you know, the girls, as we call those groups, and that sort of thing. My nursing class, the pediatric group, like just so many, right? So
Exactly.
yeah,
And so I can't stress enough, like we are hoping you guys will be the champions for this work in PEI and just like host those workshops and share that concept. And absolutely, there was a lady in one of my sessions who was from the Catholic Women's League. I always get them confused, but CWL. And she was like, I'm hosting a session at our CWL, and then I'm going to get those ladies to hold sessions. And I said, yes, love it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's the idea here. I mean, it's great that, you know, for you're going to see benefit from this, but that's the other piece that's helpful. And just one more thing I'll share, because I think Nancy Marie may want to say something, but the mental health piece, you know, if that gets put on the wish list and say your friend takes that to her family physician appointment when she goes to see her family doc, you know, quickly they would pick up on that and go, okay, like what, you know, why did you put it on here? And let's see what we can do to help you out. So, I mean, putting that sort of stuff on there it just will help the physician when they're reviewing it.
I think being able to articulating it,
yes.
right, is the big thing, right? People
For
having
sure.
the courage to be able to do that.
Yeah. Nancy Marie, did you want to say anything quick? Oh, you're still on mute.
Oh, there we go. I just wanted to add quickly, but it's already been said, like Audrey going first. Wow, I'm so impressed, and hearing what you're saying and how important it is. You know, we hear all the time in our work, I wish I would have known about this sooner, right? Or I could have used this sooner. So you got the information now, and it sounds like you're already going to be a champion. So woohoo.
Yes. So
That's
thank
great.
you very much
Thank
for
you.
sharing.
Okay, great.
Jacqueline, I see would you mind sharing?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, not a bit. So mine, just a little background first. So I joined this session today. I work as a support services coordinator for the Alzheimer's Society. So my role is supporting primarily caregivers as they care for someone with dementia. So this is super helpful for me as I support these people, but also for myself. I have 3 children. I'm a single parent, and actually 2 of my children have a form of muscular dystrophy. So they both, so my both boys have SMA and require power equipment, and it's just, there's a lot happening here. So a lot. So, and my kids are very active and involved, and we're running the roads and we're doing all the things. So I am fried for a lack of a better term. So
Fair
trying
enough.
to practice what I preach to my clients. So anyways, so my care map, my brain does not have the ability today to figure out the arrows, but
That's
this
fine.
is, I need
Ah.
to, I deal with colors. That's just
I'm a
kind of
color
how-
person.
Yeah, that's how I operate. So,
Mhm.
so I'll just sort of explain. So in my house, I have myself and my 3 children, and we have a dog, Molly Pearl, and a cat Goose. So that's kind of what's happening in my house.
Got
So around me, primarily the supports that I have here, my 2 best friends live within a kilometer. So I kind of put them here. They're lovely. All 3 of us have special needs children. So we are all focused on sort of what's happening in our own homes. So don't have the ability to be hands on deck, with each other, but the emotional support piece
Yeah.
is so important for us. So we touch base daily, check in on each other, go over to the local resort to get together, or like stop in at each other's houses. So that's a big piece for me. I have family who lives close by. My parents travel frequently, so are not able to help a whole lot, but they're really great to my kids. So they're there if we need them. I just don't like to reach out a whole lot. I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad. This is a work in progress. My work girls are amazing. So I don't work with them, physically, like I work remotely, but we talk every day, and they're great. My sister and brother-in-law, they live across the river. We have kids the same age, so they're really good that way too. So my ex-husband lives in Nova Scotia now, so he's pretty removed from the situation. So I do have respite workers that do help, they're amazing. Sleep is a big problem here, so I do have them a couple nights a week, so I can sleep. So that's great.
Oh, good.
So I listed out, my writing is so messy. This is what 7 years of university does to a person. You just can't write anymore. So I listed out all of the professionals that we have. I just haven't, my brain can't finish this. So I wrote down like the teams that we have at Stan Cassidy and IWK and locally, the school, guidance counselor. I have seen a counselor for 7 years.
Great.
That's such a huge piece. That's super helpful. So I wrote them all down. I just didn't place them yet. My wish list.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Oh yeah. So my wish list, I actually just sent a meme to my family that it's like struggle bus. So like life theme. Anyways, I'm sure lots of people can understand the struggle bus. So my wish list would involve help with running for the kids' activities, because the evenings are crazy. So help with that. Help with just a second person on deck here. Even though I'm here, it can get very overstimulating with a lot of stuff happening. So just having that second person every now and again, just to be here to help troubleshoot is super helpful. People in our network that would make plans to involve us and like look after the details of the accessibility features, so I don't need to process that, because I find the mental load is big. Fixing things in my house right now, my heat pump, one of them is kind of on the fritz. That's not things that I'm able to troubleshoot, or like if things, just any household things, if they kind of go sideways, I just don't have the ability to figure those out. So someone to do fix-it things would be really great. Tech support, I cannot figure out technology. I was trying to get a Fire Stick going for my daughter last night and just about lost my marbles. So tech support would be lovely. And then I wrote down a personal secretary, which is totally unrealistic, but this is the wish list, so it's totally fine. Anyways, I'm sure there's lots of other things, but yeah, some things I have sort of under control that are manageable, and other things are not. And it's partially my problem where I don't ask for it.
Right. Well, Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I
Yep.
mean, as I've said, people will keep building for days after. So the one thing I would share with you, and is in the literature you guys would get in the workplace toolkit, is the idea that people want to help, right?
Oh, and
So
in my brain, I know this. Oh, yes.
okay. And
Yeah.
that people benefit when you let them help.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You will actually improve their health by doing that. I was just reading an article about compassion and how they've done a ton of research, and actually the person who's offering the support benefits health-wise in addition to the person they're supporting.
Yes.
Remember that.
And I know I need a sticky note, I think, and I've said this before, and a lot of caregivers have the same thing. We're used to managing so much and being superhuman in certain ways, but and it's almost like a trigger thing where if we are asking for help, it's like there's something inside of us that feels inadequate. You know what I mean? So it's just something that we need to work on to get out of our own head is all that is.
Yeah.
So I do.
Yeah. So maybe focus on the idea by letting someone help, you're actually giving them, you're improving their health.
Yes.
Right? Like as simple as that. I mean, I grew up in New Brunswick in a rural community. We had to help each other. We were so remote and we weren't very wealthy. And so that concept is like beat into me, not literally, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's in there. So you know, I think there probably are some things on there. I understand your parents travel a lot, but I'm sure if they knew what you needed, they would be able to help out. I think it's really great that you put on there about when friends invite you guys to events, they need to think about what that means for you guys to be able to participate and plan that as well. And now that it's on there, I bet you they would read that and go, oh, dang, I never thought about that. Okay, well, what do I need to understand to be able to plan for you? So all of a sudden, you really are opening the door by having that wish list. You just got to share your map and you got to let them help.
Yeah. So
Remember,
thank you. This has been wonderful. So thank you.
You're improving their health when you let them help.
There will be Post-it notes all over my house to remind me of that now.
So we only have about 15 minutes left. So if that's okay, if anybody has any questions, like put them in the chat or give us your email and I could try and follow up with you because we do need to move along. The only thing I want to share with you guys, so when you run the workshop, you get this discussion activity that you would pass on to the people when they are sharing their map in partner form. So it actually helps with that discussion. Obviously, I'm able to ask those questions because it's ingrained in me now, but you will have this document in the workshop toolkit to help. Okay, guys, I'm going to go back and share my screen quickly. Everybody can see the screen. If you can't, if you could just post in the chat for us that you can't see it. Okay, so let's continue along. So we've sort of done a recap. So I think very quickly, you guys can get the sense that all of a sudden this pie that's very big, or this piece that's very big, is going to become smaller once people understand what they need or how they can help you. So share that map, share the wish list, and remember, if you let them help, you're improving their health. Okay. We're just going to go through the last part, which is about where to look for additional help. So Nancy Marie and I are going to sort of go through that. So Nancy Marie, I think this slide is for you.
So for those people would probably know, there is no formal caregiver network on PEI. Specific to the work that we do, there's us, and then there's the Eastern Kings Hospice and Southern Kings Hospice, in one out of Montague and one out of Surrey. I can't say enough about 211. If you don't know, just ask and they will find what you need. And because we have a 211 PEI, they're very knowledgeable and helpful. For those in the helping profession, like we are at hospice, the new PEI helping tree just came out. So there's a lot of information on that poster of all different kinds of organizations that would support people, and you would a person would be able to glean information on caregiver stuff. Of course, there's Alzheimer's Society of PEI, who do very specific caregiver support to Bonnie, what did you call them? Care recipients. I am going to use that from now on because we always struggle with that word client and how not very personal it seems. So care recipient, I love it. So yes, I know there's a number of folks here from Alzheimer's. Jacqueline just spoke with us. To be able to get requests for home care supports, if you go on the Health PEI website, there's an actual referral form there to apply for home care support and to see if you qualify. The after hours paramedic program is specific certainly to palliative care. I can't speak enough about that program. Again, Health PEI, if you were to just Google Health PEI palliative, there's a ton of information and resources there. The advanced care planning workbook is there, and I probably do over 300 not 300 talks, but present to over 300 people a year on the importance of healthcare planning and the healthcare directive. And then all of our healthcare navigators. So if you again Google Health PEI navigators, you're going to get the various folks. I think was somebody from the stroke patient navigator is on that site. And I know that Bonnie's going to talk about some other really important sites.
Yeah, and just like I'm a huge fan of 211 as well. And so if you don't have exposure to it, it is across Canada. So the other great thing is, like, I live in Ontario, my parents were living in New Brunswick, and so I could go on to 211 and find services for them. So, you know, think about that piece as well. If you have someone else across the country who you want to try and support, you could go to that 211 for that province and community and find supports there. So just something to think about. You know, and we just sort of wanted to remind everybody, and certainly if you're a caregiver, you don't need reminding, but the toll it can take. And I say this, you know, caregiving for my late partner, I would never change it. It was tiring, it was exhausting, it definitely took a toll. I would never change it. There were beautiful moments that we had, and I'm glad I was on that journey for 5 years, as tough and challenging as it was. So it does take a toll. It's not an awful journey. I know that can have its moments, but it takes its toll. So we really need to support caregivers, support their physical and their mental health. So we just wanted to share some caregiving organizations across the country in case, you know, as Nancy Marie mentioned, there isn't one specifically in PEI. You know, Ontario Caregiving Organization has a lot of really great resources, BC, but check out Cares Canada, all of them. If you're French, check out the one in Quebec, or you know someone maybe who is French speaking, then the Quebec one will absolutely be helpful. And Nancy Marie, I think you sort of want to speak to the Nova Scotia group.
Well, it's very similar to all of those that you listed, that are listed there. If you go on any of those sites, which I've looked at, I love the BC. I'm a big fan of Nova Scotia, Caregivers Nova Scotia. There's a lot of information there that, even though it's provincially specific, there's enough information that it can help you navigate, advocate, and build those care hubs. There's videos to share with your siblings or your other care partners. There's so much information in all of them. And specifically in Caregivers Nova Scotia, there is a section that's very specific to, of course, palliative. But I do want to reiterate that all of this stuff that we're talking about today and we talked about on Monday it's not palliative necessarily focused. This is information that is good for everybody. You can go and click on specific palliative, end of life information, but even within those clicks, there's a lot of information that helps you or helps your circle of people prepare and give autonomy to those that you're caring for.
Yeah, we highlight a lot of the resources here across the country in that LEAP caregiver or LEAP carers course that we would have mentioned on Monday. So absolutely, there's lots of content that's applicable. And just sort of, you know, caregiving outside again of PEI. So there's the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence. It's a newer organization, but I would absolutely encourage you to look them up. Lots of great resources. They have some specifically been focusing on like sibling caregivers, for instance. Canadian Virtual Hospice has caregiving supports, Canadian Hospice Palliative Care Association, and, you know, grief.ca, because often as caregivers, the grief starts long before, you know, certainly someone passes away, grieving those changes. So grief.ca can also be very helpful. So we're just sort of wrapping up today. Just closing remarks, you know, get the healthcare professional involved. If you're a healthcare professional, what can you do, right? So, and I think many of you guys are sort of from that professional role and really, you know, try and get clients, patients who are caregiving to draw their map, host workshops, right? And then if you're a healthcare professional, integrate the map as a part of their plan, right? When you meet with them every time. Organizations, sort of the same thing, right? Use the Atlas CareMap fact sheet, which you will get in the toolkit. Here it is. It's like a little 2-pager. It's an overview summary of the tools. So when you're talking about it, you're going out to maybe find some partners to co-host a workshop, use this document. It's got everything they need. It'll point them to Pallium's website if they have more questions. So we've created that for you to sort of spread the, create that awareness and have those conversations and host a workshop, right? Whether you're doing it in your organization, you're doing it at the local library, you're doing it with your church, whatever, right? Just host. And individually, it's the same sort of thing, right? You know, maybe try and help people draw their own map, which we heard from Audrey about helping her friend, you know, and then you may even be able to host a workshop or co-host if you partner up with someone to host that workshop. If you're a big social media person, maybe you're a TikToker, who knows, right? Like post it on social media. Really, we need to get the word out as much as we can. This is really an unknown tool. So in review, creating and using your care map. So it, again, will help the caregiver understand their caregiving journey. It'll, you know, when they reflect, it'll help them see maybe where there's some gaps or where they'd like that support. They write that wish list, which please, you know, make that like almost mandatory. When they go to share that map, it will help broaden their support network because it'll be easier for someone to go, I can do that. You don't even have to ask, right? Like the caregiver doesn't even have to ask. They just, what is this? Oh, these are the things I'd like support with. Oh, I can do that, right? So share the wish list in the care map. It will broaden their support network. And at the end of the day, it improves their quality of life, them and the care recipient. If they're not so stressed out and pulled in a million different directions, they're going to have better quality of life. Maybe they're going to have a little more room for self-care. So, you know, that's what we want to do is lighten their load a little bit. Just quickly, some other reminder about other Pallium toolkits that are in this space. So I just mentioned that LEAP Carers online free module for caregivers. We talked about that on Monday. It gives them knowledge and tools to support them on the journey. And then the Atlas CareMap toolkit. This toolkit specifically has the tools in there to help just with the building of the map. So if you're going to go help a friend build their map, you know, maybe the first time you would download those resources. And then there's the community workshop toolkit, which the slide deck's out of, and that's going to help you host and run a workshop. Has everything in there you need. It has a poster, it has an invitation letter, it has a funding letter. It really, guys, we thought of everything for you. We put the speaking notes in the slides, so everything's in there to make this easy. And then I think, Nancy Marie, you just sort of wanted to mention some of the other resources you guys had at the hospice. Oh, you're on mute.
A lot of people are not familiar with, like, what does hospice support mean? We used to actually call that bedside support, but it's misleading because most of our care recipients, I'm gonna get used to that. Most of our care recipients are not in a bed. And so things like taking them for drives or doing events or driving them to medical appointments or helping them with their gardening, or there's all kinds of things we do. We have a range of grief support services, not professional counseling, it's peer-to-peer based. And of course, our new caregiver support groups that we're running and are committed to. It was a pilot project and we're now committed to offering this as one of our regular services. I encourage you to go check us out on the website, follow us, or give us a call, and I'd be happy to come and chat about how we can help.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, guys, so we've come to the end. Are there any questions? I know we're at 12:30. Does anybody have anything that's sort of still outstanding they needed answered? I know Diana's been great sending us links to different pieces for you guys. You will get that follow-up email. I think in that email, we are including the link to the Care Connections program. So you can go in and download those kits. So you have all the resources you need. And Diana has also just posted in there for us about doing the post-webinar survey. So I don't see any questions. You can unmute yourself if you have them. If not, I just want to say thank you guys for joining us. I hope it was helpful, insightful, and I thank you for being a champion in whatever capacity you can be. You may not feel comfortable hosting the workshop and running that slide deck, but maybe you buddy up with someone who is, and you do all the background work, sending out the invitations, putting up the posters, that sort of thing. We all sort of have a role to play, is something we say here quite frequently at Pallium, and just figure out where you fit in and how you can promote. So thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us. And please reach out to Nancy Marie or myself if you have any additional questions. Bye, everybody.
And I would just like to add, I didn't do any of this heavy lifting for this presentation, and want to acknowledge that Bonnie and her team have really put this together, and we were very excited to be a part and to help promote it. And we are definitely going to take on a champion role. So kudos to you folks for creating this, and we'll definitely help spread the word about this. So thank you, everybody, for participating, and especially thank you to Bonnie and your team.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You too.